Elena adjusted the strap of her faded handbag, fingers trembling slightly as she checked the time on her phone. 6:45. He was already 15 minutes late. She smoothed down the skirt she had borrowed from her neighbor, a simple navy piece, hardly glamorous, but decent enough for a dinner date. It wasn't just a date for her. It was a chance. Her best friend had convinced her to try blind dating after months of watching Elena work 2 jobs, raising her 5-year-old son, Marcus, on her own. "You deserve someone who sees you," her friend had insisted, sliding her phone across the table with a man's profile glowing on the screen. Elena had been hesitant, but when the man suggested meeting at a chic downtown restaurant, she said yes, though she had less than $10 left in her wallet until payday. If he turned out to be kind, maybe this would be the start of something different. Something better. But as the minutes ticked by, hope wilted. Finally, a tall man entered the restaurant, scanning the room. Elena straightened, hopeful, but her breath hitched when she realized he wasn't alone. The man she was supposed to meet strode in with another woman, laughing, his arm casually draped around her shoulders. He didn't even glance Elena's way. Her cheeks burned. She shrank into her chair, wishing she could melt into the fabric. The hostess guided them to a table across the room, and Elena's date, no, not her date anymore, leaned close to his companion, whispering things that made her giggle. The server approached Elena's table with polite expectancy. "Would you like to order something, miss?" She swallowed hard. Walking out now would draw more attention. She glanced at the menu, eyes widening at the prices. The cheapest item was a side of soup, $12. Her fingers brushed the crumpled bills in her wallet. $7. All she had. "All, just have water," she murmured. The server's expression softened, but he nodded and left without comment. Elena's throat tightened. She shouldn't have come. She shouldn't have believed she could belong in a place like this. From across the room, however, someone was watching. At the far corner of the restaurant, a man in an impeccably tailored suit set down his glass of wine, eyes narrowing. He had arrived half an hour earlier for a private business dinner that had since been cancelled. While waiting for his driver, he had noticed the young woman sitting alone, her expression a fragile mask of composure. Adrian Chen had built an empire from nothing. As CEO of a multinational real estate conglomerate, he had seen every shade of human ambition, greed, charm, desperation. But the sight of this woman, abandoned and holding herself with quiet dignity despite her circumstances, pulled at something in him he couldn't explain. He noticed the way her hands shook slightly as she held her glass of water. The way she avoided looking at the man across the room who was supposed to have been with her. The faint weariness in her eyes, not just from this night, but from life itself. Adrian was not a man prone to impulse. Yet before he realized what he was doing, he stood and crossed the room. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low and steady. "Is this seat taken?" Elena blinked up at him, startled. Her first thought was that he had mistaken her for someone else. Men like him, polished, commanding, radiating wealth, didn't stop at tables like hers. "No, it's not taken," she stammered. Adrian slid into the chair opposite her, the leather of his suit jacket whispering against the fabric. The server rushed over at once, clearly recognizing who he was. "Mr. Chen, should I bring your usual?" "Not tonight," Adrian said without looking away from Elena. "Bring us the chef's recommendations." Elena's heart lurched. "Wait, I can't." "You can," Adrian interrupted gently. "And you will. No one should sit in a restaurant with only water for dinner." Her cheeks flushed crimson. I don't want your pity." A flicker of respect passed through his gaze. "It isn't pity," he said simply. "It's dinner. With company." For a long moment, they held each other's eyes. Elena searched for mockery, but found none. Only calm sincerity, anchored by the weight of someone used to being listened to. Finally, she exhaled, shoulders slumping. "Thank you." The food arrived soon after, fragrant and artfully plated. Elena hadn't tasted anything so exquisite in years. She ate slowly, almost reverently, conscious of Adrian's steady presence across the table. He didn't pry, didn't interrogate. Instead, he asked gentle questions, what books she liked, where she grew up. She answered cautiously at first, then with growing ease, surprised by how natural it felt. At last, he leaned back. "May I ask something more personal?" Elena hesitated, then nodded. "Why were you here tonight, alone?" Her throat tightened again. She toyed with her fork, considering whether to hide the truth. But something about his gaze, steady, unyielding yet kind, stripped away her defenses. I was supposed to meet someone, she admitted quietly. A blind date, but she gestured faintly toward the man still laughing with his companion. Adrian's jaw tightened. He left you here. Not exactly, she murmured. He just found someone better. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Adrian said, then he's a fool. Elena gave a small, incredulous laugh. You don't have to say that. It happens to be true. The warmth in his tone made her eyes sting. She blinked rapidly, determined not to cry in front of him. After dinner, Adrian insisted on walking her outside. The night air was cool, the city buzzing around them. Elena clutched her bag, suddenly self-conscious again. Thank you, she said. For everything. But I should go. My son is waiting at home. Adrian stopped short. You have a son, she nodded. Marcus. He's 5. Something flickered in his eyes, not disappointment, as she half feared, but intrigue. Admiration, even. Then he's lucky, Adrian said softly. To have a mother who keeps standing tall, even when the world tries to knock her down. The words undid her. For so long she had borne the weight of survival alone, never hearing acknowledgement, never being seen. And here was a man who not only saw her, but looked deeper. I don't know why you sat with me tonight, Elena whispered, but I'm glad you did. Adrian smiled faintly. So am I. He handed her a simple white business card. Just his name, embossed in silver. If you ever find yourself with only $7 again, call me. Not because you need saving, but because I'd like to see you smile over dinner again. Elena tucked the card into her bag, heart pounding. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She still had bills to pay, a child to raise, 1,000 battles ahead. But for the first time in years, she felt a spark of possibility. And Adrian, powerful CEO though he was, found himself thinking not of mergers or profits as his car pulled away, but of a woman who carried her struggles with quiet grace, and the son waiting at home for her. Perhaps fate had a way of arranging meetings more meaningful than any blind date could ever promise. Elena shifted uncomfortably in her seat, trying to ignore the elegant couples around her. The restaurant smelled faintly of truffle and red wine, the kind of place she had only ever seen in glossy magazines left behind on subway seats. Her friend had sworn this blind date would be different. He's stable, successful, nice, she'd promised, her eyes alight with conviction. You deserve someone who'll take care of you for once. Elena had smiled weakly, reluctant but willing. After all, what harm could one dinner do? She had even splurged on a babysitter for her son, Marcus, though it left her with just $7 until payday. But now it was 15 minutes past their agreed time, and her so-called date was nowhere to be found. Just as she debated leaving, the door swung open. Relief rose in her chest, until it curdled into humiliation. He was here, but not alone. The man she had exchanged hopeful texts with strolled in, arms snug around another woman's waist. They laughed as if the world belonged to them. He didn't even glance in Elena's direction, though she sat in plain view. Her chest tightened. The hostess led them to a table across the room. Elena felt small, invisible, and yet painfully exposed. The server approached her politely. Would you like to order something, miss? Her eyes skimmed the menu, panic rising at the sight of the prices. The cheapest option, a $12 soup. Her wallet held 7 crumpled bills. That was it. Just water, please, she whispered, forcing a smile. The server gave her a brief, knowing look before retreating. Elena's face burned. She shouldn't have come. What had she been thinking, imagining she could belong in a place like this? From a quiet corner, however, a man in a sharp gray suit had been watching. Adrian Chen was used to observing people. It was second nature to him as a CEO, one who had built a billion-dollar empire from the ground up. Yet in all his years of studying ambition, arrogance, and greed, he had rarely seen what he saw now, dignity in defeat. The young woman across the room radiated it, though her hands trembled slightly around her glass of water. She had clearly been abandoned, left humiliated. But instead of storming out, she sat tall, her gaze fixed on the table, clinging to a quiet strength. Adrian didn't know why it stirred him so deeply. He only knew he couldn't ignore it. Rising, he crossed the room. Excuse me, he said, voice smooth but gentle. Is this seat taken? Elena's head snapped up, startled. The man before her looked as though he had stepped out of a business magazine, tailored suit, strong presence, eyes that missed nothing. Surely he was in the wrong place. No, it's not taken, she managed. Without hesitation, Adrian sat. The server rushed over immediately. Mr. Chen, shall I bring your usual? Not tonight, Adrian replied, eyes never leaving Elena. Bring us the chef's recommendations. Elena's heart lurched. Wait. I can't. You can, Adrian said firmly, but not unkindly. And you will. No one should sit here with only water for dinner. I don't want your pity, she whispered. His lips curved slightly. It isn't pity, it's dinner. And I'd like your company. For a moment, Elena hesitated. Then, slowly, she nodded. When the dishes arrived, fragrant, rich, unlike anything she had tasted in years, she ate carefully, half afraid it was all a dream. Adrian didn't press her with invasive questions. Instead, he asked simple things: what books she liked, what music made her smile. His voice was calm, steady, strangely reassuring. Eventually, though, he leaned back, studying her with thoughtful eyes. Tell me, he said softly. Why were you sitting alone tonight? Elena hesitated, then sighed. I was supposed to meet someone. A blind date, but he found someone better. She gestured faintly toward the man across the room. Adrian's expression hardened. Then he's a fool. Her laugh was short, incredulous. You don't have to say that. It happens to be true, he said simply. For the first time all evening, warmth spread through her chest. She lowered her gaze, blinking back tears. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel entirely invisible. Part 2. After dinner, Adrian insisted on walking Elena outside. The night air was cool, the city alive with light and movement. Thank you, she said quietly. For everything, but I should go. My son is waiting at home. Adrian stopped short, intrigued. You have a son, she nodded, bracing herself for the look she'd grown used to from men: hesitation, discomfort, retreat. But Adrian's expression held none of those things. Instead, there was curiosity. Respect. What's his name? Marcus. He's 5. Something softened in Adrian's eyes. Then he's lucky, he said gently, to have a mother strong enough to carry the world for him. Elena froze. No one had ever said that to her before. Not her ex, not even her family. The words pierced her walls, leaving her throat tight with unshed tears. She cleared her throat. You don't even know me. I know enough, Adrian said calmly. I know you were left behind, and instead of breaking, you held your head high. That tells me more than any resume ever could. She didn't know how to respond. Instead, she stared at him, memorizing the unusual kindness in his face. He reached into his jacket, pulling out a sleek white card. His name gleamed in silver letters: Adrian Chen. Nothing else. No number, no title, no company. Just him. If you ever find yourself sitting with only $7 again, he said, handing it to her, call me. Not because you need saving, you've proven you don't. But because I'd like to see you smile over dinner again. Her fingers closed around the card, heart thundering. She didn't know why he was offering this. Men like him didn't linger on women like her. And yet, there he stood, steady, waiting. I'll think about it, she whispered. Adrian smiled faintly, as though he knew she would. Good night, Elena, she blinked. How do you know my name? His smile widened, almost imperceptibly. I listen. And with that, he stepped into the waiting car that whisked him away, leaving Elena standing on the sidewalk, the card clutched like a fragile promise. Days passed, but the memory lingered. The way he had looked at her, not with pity but with something else entirely. The way his voice had carried certainty, as though he believed she was worth noticing, worth knowing. On a weary Friday evening, after tucking Marcus into bed, Elena pulled out the card again. Simple, elegant, powerful. Her life was still messy, uncertain, weighed down by bills and exhaustion. But for the first time in years, she felt possibility shimmer at the edges of her world. And somewhere across the city, Adrian Chen sat in his office overlooking the skyline, the faintest smile on his lips. For all his wealth and power, he had never been captivated by anyone quite like her. Perhaps fate had its own plans. Plans that began not with luxury or wealth, but with a single abandoned woman, $7, and the courage to meet a stranger's gaze. And perhaps, just perhaps, this was only the beginning.